Welcome to this edition of the MDM Podcast. This episode is sponsored by White Cup. White Cup believes distributors win more with data-driven technology because the right technology increases revenue and builds sustainable profits. Distributors need tools that use data to make selling smarter, faster, and easier for their teams. White Cup CRM, BI, and pricing solutions are built specifically for distributors, provide access to intuitive automation, and are integrated with your ERP. Set your sales team up for success with White Cup. Visit whitecupsolutions.com to schedule a free 1-hour sales consultation with a team of experts to evaluate your current sales process and talk through actionable steps you can take to make changes that will increase revenue and profits using data analysis techniques and more. Visit whitecupsolutions.com to get started. Now, please enjoy this episode.
Welcome to this edition of the MDM Podcast. I'm Tom Gale, CEO of Modern Distribution Management. My guest today is Scott Schuenke, Vice President of Strategic Development for Sonepar North America. Scott started his career in electrical distribution in 1984 and joined family-owned Viking Electric based in St. Paul, Minnesota in 2005. Viking was one of Sonepar's early acquisitions in 2000. Scott became Director of Marketing for Sonepar USA's electrical distribution operations in 2009, Vice President of Marketing and Communications in 2015, and in his current role for the past 3 years. Sonepar is ranked number 2 in revenues for North American electrical distributors in MDM's top distributors list, with 2022 North American revenues of $14 billion, up 28% over 2021 revenues. It operates from 450 branches with 10,000 associates and accounts for about 40% of Sonepar's global revenues. Sonepar globally recorded 2022 sales of $33 billion in US dollars, with 44,000 associates. Sonepar has continued to build on its acquisition model over the past 2 decades to build a network of strong independent operating companies. These include many well-known market leaders: Capital Electric, Cooper Electric Supply, Crawford, Codale, Independent, Irby, North Coast, OneSource, Springfield, and others. Scott and I have had many conversations about strategy, data analytics, and the North American distribution competitive landscape over the past 25 years. He announced his retirement earlier this year for June 2023, and I wanted to be sure to check in with Scott before he pursues his next adventures. I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. Scott, welcome to the MDM Podcast.
Thank you, Tom. Pleasure to be here today.
So I'd like to start out, what was your first job in this industry?
My first job was super exciting. I started doing humble beginnings. It was 1984. It was difficult to find a job, double-digit unemployment, fresh out of college. Went to an agency. They sent me to interview, and I was 260 that actually were hired as a management trainee. So my first day, I had my steel-toed shoes and Scott in the pocket, and I worked at a counter, small counter, helping contractors load their trucks, sweeping the floor, whatever needed to be done.
That's almost 40 years ago, Scott.
And it doesn't seem like 40 years at all, Tom. Looking backwards, it went really fast. But it was a great way to learn. I had a couple of guys that have been around a long time that taught me. I didn't know anything about electrical distribution, didn't know anything about the product, and had to learn from the very basic. And it was just an incredible journey.
You've been a part of Sonepar's growth story since very close to the beginning of its entrance into North American markets. What does that look like for you, and how has your role in the company evolved with its growth?
I first learned about Sonepar doing a market study in Canada in the late 80s and heard about them buying a company in Quebec. And that's where I first heard the name. I'd never heard of it before. And they said, just watch out. They start the East Coast and go west. And sure enough, in 98, they purchased the Eagle distribution in the Boston area. And when I joined Viking in 2005, that's where I became exposed to Sonepar and really began to learn. At that time, we were about 5-6 operating companies early in our journey to what we look like today. And it's been an incredible ride to not only see the growth here within the US, but North America, and then globally as well. And to kind of be exposed beyond just the markets that I knew in Minnesota and the surrounding areas to a global perspective has been a really fascinating journey for me.
And just for context, because I did go back into MDM's history a bit, it was about in that 2005 area when Sonepar was about a $2 billion company, if I recall.
Yeah, when I joined, Sonepar was a $2 billion organization. We exceeded just in the US last year over 12, 14 in North America. Again, that just incredible growth. I remember when I first went to the headquarters in 2008, we didn't need a very big room for all of us. So it's been remarkable to watch us grow and what an organization needs to look like to support a $12 billion business versus a $2 billion business. It's been fascinating to be part of the whole journey of growth.
So what does your role look like as Vice President of Strategic Development for North American Operations look like?
It's been a fascinating role for me, very fulfilling, very interesting. For me, if I was going to explain it, we do a strategic planning process we call Impact, and it's really the operating document that we use to run our business, not only in the current year, it's the forecast for next year, and it's the outlook beyond. So how do we tie in our ambition with the financial results and deliver the returns that we need to all of our shareholders? And having a seat at the table to understand operations, sales, finance, the forecasting of the markets, all these have to be part of our journey. Where do we want to get to 5-6 years from now? What is it going to take in terms of investment, not only here in the US, but then they roll these together, across the world. So having a seat at the table for developing our strategy and being able to articulate our strategy and make sure it lines up with our goals is a big part of what I do. That naturally then parlays into looking at M&A and market analytics, how our M&A opportunities kind of fit into what we're doing. That's part of it. It's working on strategic initiatives that I'm sure we'll talk about. But so I get to work on lots of special projects. I get to interact with other countries around the world. And I think the thing that I've really taken away from my experience at Sonepar is really taken my horizons, what I thought was possible, and just completely blew them out. What I thought was possible was not even close to reality. We have people around the world that have done things that if you would have asked me, is that possible? I would have said, I can't see that. And what they've taught me is the worst thing we can do to ourselves is put a barrier in front of us as to what's possible, because it's incredible how much this industry has changed since I started in '84 to where we are today. The things that Sonepar is doing, around the world that are starting to come here in the United States. The next 40 years are going to be absolutely incredible. I wish I was going to be here to see it all.
So it sounds like a good part of your responsibility is really around research, not only competitive landscape within distribution, but outside in other sectors in terms of innovation and what you can bring into the company to map out what its future success looks like.
I think to be able to effectively create a strategic plan that goes out 5 years, you have to spend a great deal of time not only analyzing yourself and your performances are that around you, but also competition. What are they doing? What are they looking like? What's their growth strategy? What's their M&A acquisition strategy? Then, thankful for working for Sonepar with a global perspective, what are we doing in other parts of the world that we need to bring here? What can we leverage that others have blazed a path that we can then learn from and improve our adoption speed dramatically because we're already grabbing something that's proven and bringing it in? Then how do we take that then to our customers? How do we look at where we're successful, where we might be not performing as well as we are? And when you triangulate all of that, and then you start looking outside the industry, I've been involved with NAW, listening to what other distribution channels do around strategic pricing, sales leadership, specialists, sales transformation. All that kind of gets put all together and you blend that all up, and then you got to bring that back and make it operational and digestible for your own organization, and then align that with what you can generate in terms of results, knowing what it's going to cost you, and you have to get a return for that. So when you look at all that together, it's a fascinating exercise because it makes you the worst thing you can do is just look at what's right in front of you and base all your decisions around that. By widening that net and getting all these inputs is critical, I think, for success around strategic development.
Sonepar has been on a multi-year digital and supply chain transformation journey, but I know in many ways that transformation work has been a larger and more integrated business transformation process, especially accelerated by what's been taking place here over the last 3 years or so. Can you talk a little bit about how that's shaped and where you see the next steps?
For us, it starts with the customer and how they're thinking about what their needs, requirements, the challenge that they have, and then how can we adapt to deliver those expectations. And two areas that clearly are right in our sweet spot that we're focused on is the need for an omni-channel solution, which would bring in all the digital tools they need. And also then, how do you have your operations as such that you can match up the speed requirements, the service level requirements that customers are looking for. And both of these require a significant amount, not only of capital expense and investment, but also in change management. And so there's a combination of investing, which we're very public. We're investing billions in warehouse automation and digital. And then there's that whole other component of how do you bring everybody along with you in that journey to adopt the change, because it does fundamentally make some changes in the way you operate for the better. But if you don't articulate that well and people see the value, now you've got culture maybe potentially colliding with these big visions. So it starts with what the customer wants. How do we adapt ourselves? And we know that the future, and we're seeing this in Europe because they're typically now years ahead of us, the digital penetration on web and mobile is significantly higher than the market here. That's an indicator that that's coming in this direction. So we have to be prepared for that. And it's interesting in the M&A activity that we do, many of our companies that join us have tried unsuccessfully to launch a digital tool and have finally said, man, it's just too much. And some solid companies have struggled. So it provides an opportunity for them to come with us and take advantage of these investments. That way we're enhancing what they already have. We keep the local strength. And now we have another growth platform. Again, all around our strategic development. We don't have companies acquired to join us and stay the same. We have them acquire us so we can invest in and watch them grow, prosper in markets that are important to us.
I want to come back to the change management piece in a little while, but before we go in that direction, can you talk a little bit about a couple of the strategic initiatives that you've been a part of and that you've been really most passionate about?
The most recent one that I'm extremely passionate about is, so we do these 5-year impact plans at the Sonepar level, the Sonepar USA level. We figure out what our growth strategies are, but ultimately the business is done in our operating companies local to the market. So what we did is we had these same impact planning sessions with all of the opcos. We call them opcos. That's our slang term. Sorry for that, but it's natural for me to call them opcos. And we developed growth plans for all of them. And we started with analyzing the market. What does the market look like? Where are we positioned today? What are our strengths, weaknesses, et cetera? Where are our opportunities? We lined up around where our big growth opportunities are in each market. No surprise, they were very similar. Despite what you hear, we're not radically different from on the East Coast than we are on the West Coast. Our markets act very much the same. We're 98% similar and 2% difference, so let's work on the 98. And we cascaded all of our significant growth expectations down to those that own it. Our operating companies actually sell the product to our customers. And so we now have a roadmap. So we're all playing from the same playbook. This is not a corporate plan. This is a bottom-up, OpCo-driven growth plan supported by the functional areas of operations, digital, IT, HR, from a much larger perspective, not only a U.S. North America perspective, but a global perspective on these functional areas.
And how many operating companies are in North America?
Well, we've added a few recently. So I think our number's up to 18 now, but that's what we were built on. We were built on acquisition. We started with Northeast, and I think over the last 20 years, there's been 70 to 80 acquisitions that have made us who we are today, plus organic growth.
Yeah. I'd like to shift a little bit and talk about strategy and analytics. We've talked many times about sales effectiveness and data analytics. You are a very early adopter of segmentation and stratification methodologies to define sweet spots and target market opportunities. So there's a couple angles here. first, can you share a little bit about on what your personal journey has been around data analytics and how you came to be passionate about that value?
It's funny. It started when I was a kid. I was a huge baseball fan, and I baseball statistics are still swimming around my brain in a big, big way. My mother always said if I worried as much about school as I worried about batting averages and ERAs, I could maybe make something out of myself someday. So it started early on with being very comfortable with numbers. To me, they tell a story. People make the story happen, but they're an excellent report card or predictor of the future if used properly. And Tom, when you and I started talking, we were trying to really put together what does our market really look like so we could benchmark ourselves. How, what are the categories? How big are these categories? And for us, just building customer records, deep records that we could use to have levers to pull to do different types of analytics around not only the results, but also how customers, their firmographic, what do they do? How do they interact with us? How often do they interact with us? What do our average order size look like? How often do they buy? What are the product categories they're buying? What are the product categories they're not? And that data wasn't readily available 15 years ago. And so we had to start by building literally stronger stratification, building those customer records so that we can do much deeper analytics than just you're a contractor and this is how much we did with you. It's like, how do you benchmark? Because different customers buy different things in different quantities and different amounts. And I don't know how you can really analyze your performance or what your future opportunities are if you can't identify the differences in buying patterns and et cetera in each of the segments. So it started with that. And it was a difficult journey at first because people are comfortable with what they know. They're comfortable with their gut, their experience. And to introduce this type of analytics sometimes isn't as well received as one would hope that it would be. There's a lot of change management that's involved. There's a fear factor involved. We're not out to judge. We're out to help. We're not trying to take away anything from anyone. We're trying to help people grow and to help our business grow. That's the purpose of analytics. But where it really started, I think, at a higher level was looking at our share position, every county by major segment in the U.S., and really peeling our business apart. And for us, that really was a big eye opener where we thought we were whatever we thought we were. We're the market leader here, and you do the analytics and you say, well, wow, that the numbers don't spell that out. So how do you get anybody, whether it be a business, a branch, or a salesperson, to want to improve and to change and go things differently if you can't professionally show them that there's all this market opportunity out there that they're not getting today? Yeah. If you think you're number one, you're going to back off on your effort to keep exercising or pushing or driving. And to me, it's more of we're not pointing out our weaknesses, we're pointing out our opportunities. And that's how it has to be presented to people. Yeah.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. And particularly, I know you dug into this 15 years ago or more. Was there a certain point where, because I'm sure you were trying to rope up a hill in some ways, because like you say, you can bring the data analytics to the table, but there's this whole other element, and it's not taking anything away from salespeople, but it's very difficult to try to adjust their perspectives from territories that they feel like they have so much knowledge and insight about, and you can't beat them over the head with it, right?
I think salespeople are incredibly important to us, and everybody always wants to tell a salesperson how they could be better. And most people that tell them that have never been a salesperson. So my spirit here is not to say that look, we see this and you don't. That is not what I'm saying at all. And I don't want to deliver that message at all. Our salespeople, like anybody else, they've got a ton of inputs going on. They don't have time to sit down and benchmark different things against other people. And I'd love to tell you that we have huge adoption with this whole process. But you know what? This is a journey that we're on, and we have a long way to go. But the good news is we've actually gotten started, and we have people raising their hands. They want more. They want to use it in running their business, in running their territory, et cetera, or running their account package. And so I never want to leave the impression that salespeople are doing the wrong things. But I think it's important to understand that our customer expectations are changing, though. And it's difficult for a salesperson to be experts in every one of these areas that customers are now pulling us into, which is why we've seen such an expansion of specialists that are really, focused on a given area that a salesperson can bring in to help with the customer, whether it be digital, automation. I mean, we've got lots of specialists in our organization. That number keeps growing every year. We invest heavily into it. Gear, lighting people, designers, et cetera. They've got more resources than ever. So this is a team effort. We're all in this together, and we have to bring everybody along with us in this journey for us to be successful, and then have a disciplined process from a leadership, a management standpoint, to make sure that there is cadence around this. That, look, if we need help in this areas, we have specialists that can help you. Let's get them out to this and this customer, et cetera. So again, this is about teamwork. This is about working together. There's critically important roles for not only our salespeople, specialists, leaders. I mean, we all need to spend more time with our customers, no doubt.
Yeah. Well, and it feels to me like the last 3 years in particular have, for all of us, have really opened our mindsets in terms of just more receptive of looking at ways we can do our work better, be more efficient. And I think that's done a lot for the cause of analytics overall and distribution.
No doubt. No doubt. Customers many of them are limiting the number of salespeople that can come in and call on them because they just don't have the bandwidth. So they look for value-added partners, that have these capabilities, that can manage projects in a very effective way, that have the full package of services and solutions, that can deliver those orders 100% full when they want it. That have people, they have counters they can run into and pick things up if needed. That's what customers expect. And they expect support and help at all levels of that, which is the true omni-channel. And if they want to look at night online to see where a project is at, we have the ability to have them do that. If they want to shop at night, we can do that too. We're 24/7. That's the future.
Yeah. Sonepar has what it calls the innovation incubator. Can you talk a little bit about how that evolved and what that's about?
Yeah. As we work through the year, things come up, opportunities to look into something, whether it be software, whether it be drones in the warehouse. We're running and gunning. Everybody's busy. We don't have people kind of sitting in the back office waiting for us to bring a project to them to go figure out how to use drones in a warehouse to take inventory. So what we did was we reached out to all of our operating businesses and we asked for people that have a high potential who would like to get involved with this to learn about an area. They don't have to be experts in it. Let's put teams together, give them a leader or mentor that can help guide them, but have them go do the research. So we a couple things. We expand the bandwidth of our research organization. We leverage talent that we already have. We give the talent an opportunity to learn our business and interact with their peers and one of our companies in other parts of the United States. So we had 6 major projects last year. This is the second year we did it. This is a year-long journey, and we had a report out. We kind of borrowed that kind of Shark Tank theme. They all had to present their findings to see which ones we would invest in, put more money towards R&D or more resources, and it was a fun exercise. We had some successes, 3 in particular that really kind of rose to the top, that have legs, and now they're being adopted throughout the company. But for me, it's important as the innovation things that we're creating, but more importantly, we're creating an environment where we're thinking about other things. We're involving early in career people to give them a chance to be a part of that journey and to expose them. For me, that's how you learn this business, is you get exposed to something outside of your function, your branch, your area. You get a chance to see what happens in other areas and what thoughts need to go into and what it's like to drive adoption in a company of our size. You don't just say, hey, we're going to do this tomorrow and expect everybody to follow. So we can develop the great things, but if we don't get adoption, and by the way, what we adopt has to be excitable to the operating companies where the customers are at. If we create something in a vacuum and they don't have a heavy voice into it, our odds of success aren't as high as they need to be by having them part of the process and getting their input through the development phase. It helps significantly with adoption as we go forward.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the term gamify, but as you describe what this looks like, to me, that's exactly what the power of that is in terms of creating some opportunity for some of the younger team or really anybody in the organization to think outside the box, be creative and put a little competitive piece to it. I mean, it sounds pretty exciting.
Tom, we took it past the gamifying to actually, they had to put pilots in place, test it out. Looking at some video safety solution in a warehouse. We did that. We saw the outcome. We saw where it could be used. We don't want hypotheticals. We show us, implement it someplace. It's not expensive to implement something somewhere, to test it and pilot it.
Yeah. Nothing
works better than seeing a result of something that actually happened, especially by people of your own organization, because there's comfort there. Okay, well, if it works there, it'll work here. The fact that it worked in some other form of distribution or some other company, that's nice, but that bit of skepticism for us when our own peers implemented this tool or solution or whatever you want to call it in a branch, and we had some success, even though it might be early on, and all of a sudden the interest level goes up and it has life afterwards. Oftentimes you run a program for a year, they make their report outs and it's over. And then this goes in the scrap heap. It was a great learning experience, but it doesn't help our business move forward. And these are ones that are going to help make our business better. And that'll pay dividends forever as we implement some of these things.
Yeah, that's very exciting. I'd like to come back to the change management piece that we touched on briefly before, because collaboration and effective communication are so crucial in driving strategic development. But I've got to also believe that there's a challenge there at one level to create that kind of strategic alignment across so many separate operating units that have their own culture and very, very different competitive environments. So I'm really interested to hear how you've been able to foster some cross-functional collaboration within Sonepar's North American operations to try to achieve alignment and successful execution of the larger strategic initiatives around whether it's digital or supply chain or whatever it might be.
Sure.
It's a big question.
It's a huge question, but let me attack it one way, Tom. I think, first of all, getting alignment is the easier part than the actual implementation and adoption. So getting alignment at a leadership level, you talk about the planning sessions we did around strategic planning with all the businesses. It was pretty easy for us to align around what's really critically important for our business, because again, the similarities really shine forward. We ended up in the same place without leading the teams there as we went through this 2-day process. They all came very close to ending up in the same place. Exciting, because that means we have good alignment around where we're going as a company. And I think that's really critically important, because if you're constantly changing what you're focusing on, what your priorities are, you can't keep up. So what's important is you got to pick the right ones and you got to focus hard at them and then drive forward. So alignment, not as challenging, but the challenge is always getting down to that user level and I don't say this disrespect, at the end of the chain. So that salesperson or that operating person in a branch in rural Colorado can understand why we're going in a certain direction. Now, reaching all the way through an organization is a challenge. And that's where we got to spend the time so that everybody understands the direction we're going. And we constantly reinforce that message by not whipsawing the direction that we're headed. So it's critical through a good process. We pick the right things to focus on. It's critical that we articulate the why and what's in it for not only our people, but our customers, and then work on execution and pulling everybody along. And as you know, there's always, you can break people into threes. There are those that are gung-ho. There are those that are going to ride that fence and see which way it goes. And there are going to be those that are going to just see, I told you so, but I think that's a small group. And I think it's our mission to make sure that we have as many people, I can get behind this. This makes sense to me. And if you do it right, if you show we're successful, and that's the beauty, again, I talked about a lot of things we're doing today have been tried and tested and true. Canada, the Netherlands, Germany. I mean, around the world, we've got areas where we took this, we've done a great job of it. And so we've already proven to ourselves it can be done. We just have to get it in our own minds that this is right, that we can do this as well. We're not articulating a vision that you can't see. We have proof. We have examples. So for us, it's a matter of maybe changing some priorities, maybe changing some things, locally. But the big picture, I think we got a really clear understanding of where we need to go.
So I want to come back to the three types of people. You don't have to really work hard for the people who have bought in. Are you spending your time on those fence sitters, or maybe are there specific strategies that you have found successful to try to bring along the other 2/3?
I think the other 2/3 minimize over time by being consistent, by articulating your vision, by not changing your strategic direction. It comes on understanding what's needed in the future that's already being proven other places, investing around that, and a lot of that will take care of itself. But clearly, the local leadership, I think, does a really good job. There's no doubt about it. They drive our business. It's them showing their people in their organizations that this isn't Sonepar telling us what to do. This is the right thing for us. We own this. We are together. It says Northeast, a Sonepar company. Each one of our brands says a Sonepar company. And I think they would all agree that we've been able to manage that balance of, you know what, you're known as Northeast in your territory, and that's fantastic for us. Let's build upon that legacy. But we're also a Sonepar company that's going to be bringing all these digital tools and automation that would be very difficult to do locally. So it's that balance of local execution, local talent, local relationships, and then that US, North American, global strength, financial capability, exposure, resources, and experience that can help people on their journey to move faster.
Is that the success formula for innovation? Because there's a meme out there that large corporate entities, it's hard for them to be entrepreneurial and innovative.
It gets back to, it is a challenge and it's constant work, and you just got to keep articulating your story and keep getting it out there. But what I've seen over the last 15 years with Sonepar is when you have one of your colleagues, one of your sister organizations thrive at something, everybody else suddenly says, aha, I'm going to follow that. Do they follow that as fast as we'd like? Not in every case, but you can only drive so much change from an organization. I can tell you the odds of it succeeding when you can say, hey, if they can do it, I can do it. It's the old adage, and I love to use this analogy: who ran the first 4-minute mile? Prior to that, it had never been done. And within a year, 12, 15 people did it. It's just proving to somebody it can be done. And then miraculously, like Roger Bannister breaking the 4-minute mile, others will say, I can do it too. And then it happens.
Yeah, interesting analogy. So looking ahead, Scott, what do you see as the most significant challenges and the opportunities over the next few years for the industry overall?
To me, the biggest challenge are going to be speed, artificial intelligence, even accelerated customer expectations. That's going to dramatically change everything. And so in order to touch all those things, you have to have a strong customer-focused sales organization. You've got to be strong at every level of the omni-channel. They're going to require more services and solutions. They're going to be challenged by workers. For us, people that install electrical products, they're craftspeople. We need more of them. So they're going to have a hard time filling all those roles. And we're going to have to help by bringing them solutions that they can expand and make their workforce even more productive. That's our mission. And that's going to be expected of us. Up till now, it's a nice to have. In the future, I think it's going to have to be a critical. And you're going to have to be able to articulate your value. Why should you allow us in your front door to work with you? Because you can't let everybody in. Why should we be one of those that you bring in? What kind of value can we bring?
Is that both the challenge and the opportunity?
All those are the challenge and the opportunity at the same time. No doubt about it. I look how long it took to place an order for something you didn't stock. When I started, it was weeks before the order actually made it to the factory floor. Now it's minutes. In the future, it'll be seconds.
Yeah.
And ideally, it'll already be placed because we figured out ahead of time what some of these things are going to be needed with all the tools that we have. That's the exciting part.
So I've got to ask you, because you touched on AI, and I'm not asking you to predict. I'm not asking anybody to predict where AI is going to go, but just overall thoughts where you see the most traction in the short term taking place across distribution.
Man, I wish I could answer that question with a huge amount of assuredness.
Yeah, it's a pretty unfair question nowadays, I think.
But look at what it can do for you. You can ask a question. When I started, you had to go to Jim because he'd been there 45 years, knew every widget in the warehouse, and he knew what went with what, and et cetera. Now with these AI tools, you could be like me your first day on the job, sweeping the floor, and you can ask a question, and you'll have all this institutional knowledge at your fingertips far faster than ever before. How can that not make things move faster or more accurately? That's just one area. Just think of AI, Tom, and analytics, taking everything we have and thinking about the future, because we are very good at looking backwards and analyzing what got us here and what's happening today. But taking all that information and then moving it forward into the future, what that looks like 3 to 5 years from now, using our own data, game changing. That's some of the things that artificial intelligence is going to do. And it's going to raise the bar on what's required of all of us.
I absolutely agree on the analytics piece, but especially I think that front piece with, as you look at how many people are transitioning out of the industry with decades of experience, I really think in ways that we don't fully understand at this moment, but that's going to develop here quickly over the next few years. There's going to be some capability to do that generational knowledge transfer to tee up salespeople and operational people to be much more effective in their jobs and transition their jobs into much more creative, meaningful careers. Ultimately, that's my optimistic belief on what AI is going to do for distribution.
Yeah, no, I like that. For our customers, it's going to change a lot of things. I mean, they're using AI now to look at their machines on a factory floor. What's the possibility of breakdown? On and on. And that once you have a seat at the table and you're working with that customer strategically, all of a sudden you're part of those conversations. So yes, it's going to dramatically change a lot of things, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Some of them, most of them for the good, but as you know, it's also going to create a lot of challenge for oversight. Can now always be used for good. It's going to be interesting, no doubt about it. I'm going to have a fun seat watching it, I'll tell you that.
And I know, Scott, that you are not counting down the days because of the energy in our conversation here right now, but your transition to retirement is becoming more a matter of days rather than months at this point. I've got to ask you, what are you most proud about over your career?
I'm really proud of the friends that I've made, the relationships I've built, and in some small way helping others on their journey. I'm really proud of that. I've been mentoring for a long time, working with these innovation teams. I sponsor for years. I've sponsored a project by the trainees. There's multiple projects I've been a sponsor. I had a lot of people help me in my journey. They taught me a lot, and I tried to always remember to give back. And I'm really proud of the friends that I've made. When you look back on your life, what you really measure, because once you retire, all the titles, everything else kind of goes away. And what you're left with are the people that you've influenced and that have influenced you and the memories that you built together. And I'm extremely proud of the friendships that I've made, the access that I've had around the world. If you would have asked me to say, what is my 40-year plan as that Scott in the pocket in the warehouse, I would have never dreamed within a hemisphere of what I was able to see, participate in. And I'm just incredibly grateful for all of that.
Yeah, well said. What are you going to miss most on a day-to-day basis?
I'm going to miss the action. I'm going to miss the people. When you worked in an industry for 39 years, pushing 40, it becomes part of you. So I don't think that I'll lose that completely, but I'll miss the daily interactions, the the working with people reaching out, trying to find out, like Jim, my example of Jim, 45 years. So I get asked a lot of questions just because of my longevity. I'll miss those for sure, but I'll still mentor some folks after I retire, just to stay, to continue to give back. But I'll just miss the action, no doubt about it.
Yeah. And what are you going to miss least?
Being away from my family. I've enjoyed my travels. They've made me a better person. I've been exposed to things I've never seen. Now I can spend time with my grandchildren, my children, and I can travel more when I want to travel. But I can tell you, the work, the people, I'm going to miss that.
Final question.
Yes, sir.
What are you most looking forward to in the future? And I think you partly answered that.
For me, I'm looking forward to reading more. I'm looking forward to doing more traveling with my wife. I'm looking forward to doing some volunteer things. To me, learning is a lifelong event. And so I'll continue to read like crazy, watch documentaries. For me, every day I learn how much I don't know, not how much I do know. And so more chance to learn, more chance to help others, and spend time, me and my dog, walking more and more. So, these are simple things in life that it kind of boils down to that, in this next chapter, it comes down to your quality of life and spending time with those you love and enjoying all the gifts that you've had, your health, the nature, like seeing parts of the world. To me, that's what I'm looking forward to.
You've had such a large impact in this industry, and I know so many, as I have learned from your knowledge and your generous sharing of that, and the fact that you have been a lifelong learner. So I thank you for that, and I wish you the best.
Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate it. My best to you.